Welcome to Burned and Better. I'm your host, Dr. Denisa Weber, a 7-figure CEO, speaker, mother, entrepreneur, and chiropractor. Over the last 15 years, I've faced the highest highs and the lowest lows of entrepreneurship, motherhood, and leadership. I've burned more times than I can count, but every time I've found a way through and come out better. This isn't about polished highlight reels. It's about the real, unfiltered side of leading, the kind of conversations usually kept behind closed doors. Here, I share my own stories and sit down with leaders who've stumbled, recalibrated, and built something worth leading. So if you've ever felt the weight of success or wonder what it looks like to fall hard but rise stronger, you're in the right place. Let's normalize the messy middle of leadership and step into the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing interview and podcast episode. I've got the lovely Maggie Hilpisch here. And she is, I'm just going to give you guys a little lay of the land here. She is a human design guide and facilitator who helps people move beyond self-doubt and overthinking to create meaningful change in their lives. She blends human design and subconscious repatterning to help clients learn to trust themselves again and expand their beliefs of what's possible for their lives. Since 2020, Maggie has helped hundreds of clients transform their relationships with themselves and others. Her approach bridges spiritual wisdom with real-world application. And clients describe working with Maggie as life-changing and like coming home to themselves. I can attest to that. I love that. Through their work together, her clients move from feeling stuck, disconnected, or unfulfilled to experiencing deeper fulfillment and connections in the relationships, work, and life. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so excited for you guys, honestly, to hear from Maggie today. A little backstory here is I was doing a coaching session with Steph, and she was like, "Okay, you've got to call Maggie." And I was like, whatever she says, I'm like, "Okay, connect me with somebody. It's going to help me like break through something or remove a limiting belief or get past my own self or that kind of thing. I'm here for it." So I called Maggie, or didn't call her, but reached out to her and set up a solo session. And I will say, I have hesitations with, and you probably hear this so many times, like I've had my team do Enneagram, DISC profile. Yeah, I'm sure you hear all this.
Yeah, strength finders, Colby.
Oh my gosh, all of it, Colby, and culture index and PDP and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I remember people asking me last year, I think they had worked with you probably in a couples situation, and they were like, "Well, what's your human design?" I was like, "Guys, I'm not doing one more thing. I'm not doing one more thing." Full circle, a year later, here I am reaching out to you and being like, "Okay, what is this thing?" So fill me in on how you got involved in human design, first off.
Oh, such a good question. I say it found me in late 2019, early 2020. I was about like 4 to 6 months postpartum with my first son. I was really trying to navigate motherhood and figure out what the heck I was doing. I mean, motherhood to me is a spiritual experience. You cannot convince me otherwise. And I'd always joked, and we can get into this, that I had one foot on the ground and got one foot in the clouds. I taught yoga for a decade, and I've always been into mindfulness practices. And so human design found me pretty naturally through that avenue. I think it was a mutual girlfriend was telling me that she was a manifester. And so I looked up my human design, and it was just that one of those moments where I felt so overwhelmed with validation. I had never felt so seen. And of course, it was like a domino effect. I couldn't get enough. And I started self-studying. I self-studied for about 6 or 8 months before I took my first course. I was pulling charts for everybody in my life. And that was, about 6 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you embarked on this whole process, because I will say, too, I feel like human design is almost like a permission slip. Like, that's what it feels like to me, is like, oh, okay. And I will say, too, because most people know, because I'm a believer and I'm a Christ follower, as far as like when you put in your human design, there is an element of knowing time and place of birth and all that kind of stuff, which for some people have hesitancy with that because it's more of like astrology. And I love the way that you languaged it for me, because, who set the sun, moon, and the stars in place? The Lord. Like that he is the creator. And he is quite magnificent, because the imagination that came up with that is crazy. But then, like, we are, inserted in time and place and kind of like the fabric of the time of when we land on this planet. And so I loved how you kind of languaged that. So can you kind of bridge a gap for some people that may have some hesitancy to hear about human design and have that kind of block and,
Yes, it's such a good question. And I think it's honestly a really important topic. And the first thing I would say is if you're hearing about human design and you're feeling massive resistance in your body or like that is time to set this system down and go do something else, right? And I really strongly believe that. The other thing I'll say is that human design is not a belief system. It was created and designed really as a great experiment. But it does pull from wisdom traditions like astrology and the chakra system and Kabbalah. And so it does ask you, if it does call to you, but you have hesitancy, it asks you to be open-minded a bit to what this might actually mean for you in your life. But the way I love to think about it is if God created us in his perfect vision, then who's to say that this might be one possible roadmap that could give us language to describe the things we already feel about ourselves or things that we've already experienced in our life. And so those are the ways I tee it up. And I always encourage people to hold the system lovingly and loosely. It is one system. It is not truth with a capital T, and it is not dogma, at least how I perceive it and practice it. Of course, like any system, there's going to be extremists, right? And so I really aim to not be one of those. So to make this really accessible.
Totally. It's a tool. It's a resource. And that's why I loved about how you languaged that for me. So just wanted to set the foundation before we dive into some of this, just for people that don't have any kind of reference point to it. But I just love that because we've been orchestrated to come into this time and place. And anyway, and it really was quite insightful. So when I had my solo session with you, I was kind of I'm going through like an identity shift. And so that's why it was pointed to go into this direction. But then we just did our 22nd wedding anniversary. And I gifted, as an anniversary gift to me and Tristan, was to do a couples session with Maggie. Because I wanted to know Tristan's. I knew he was a generator. I knew I was a generator. And then but then I wanted to know how is this synergistic? Where are we synergistic? Where are we not? What could we understand more about each other? And honestly, guys, I feel like we should have done this before we even got married. Would have saved us some arguments. Maybe we would have had a little more grace for one another in certain places, and so, but how has it been doing it for couples, I would say?
Oh, it's such a good question. I think this work is so transformative for couples. The way that I love to think about human design is that it's a communication tool. It is a tool to provide language and understanding and compassion, not only for yourself, but then for everybody in your life. And so I don't actively advertise that I work with couples, but it seems to be no, I love it. No, that's not it at all.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's so magical because it becomes a natural evolution of the work that I do with individuals. And so, of course, both parties have to be open-minded coming into that conversation. But I think it is such a natural extension as using you and Tristan as an example, as you get to know yourself better, you're naturally going to be curious about your partner. And that is why I think it just opens the doors and windows to deeper communication. And there are so many points of connection in a relationship, but there's naturally points of friction. And at least I can speak for my own marriage. So much of that has been resolved and or better understood by just looking at these charts and saying, oh, this is how you process. And this is how I process. This is how you express yourself. This is how I express yourself. To expect either one of us to be an equal match for the other is unreasonable, and it sets everybody up for failure.
Yes. So do you want to go into the twin thing already? What if people are born at the same time and same place? What is that? Yeah. Can you have different ones? Can you have different, I'd love to hear that.
Yes, absolutely. So we were chatting about twins before we hit record here, and do they have similar charts? And here's what I'll preface and say first. I always say that the exact time of your birth doesn't matter until it does, right? Which means it matters. And so for twins, I can speak to this because I have 3 boys. 2 of them are identical twins. They were born 10 minutes apart. And so it's been a really fun case study. Human design is, I would say, equal parts nature and nurture, or, inherent environmental. And so my twins have, on the surface, identical charts. Now, think about human design like one of those dolls. You open them up and there's layers and layers and layers to this situation. And so as we get really, really deep, almost to the deepest layers of their chart, there are some differences. But on the surface, they're identical. But what I have loved watching with my boys in particular is they are such different kids.
Yeah.
The way that they process and some of the kind of core elements of who they are very similar. But they couldn't be more different, even though they share, almost 100% of their DNA.
Yeah.
And so what's cool about their charts in particular is they have an overarching theme. All of us kind of have like the major plot line of our movie. And their major plot line of their movie is to be so unapologetically themselves and to really follow their own unique path. And so to me, it's no surprise that they are so different, because that's a huge part of their plot line of their life.
Wow. So yeah, because I told her before, I was like, my executive assistant, Alyssa, was like, I'm really curious because I'm a fraternal twin. And I was like, that's a great question. I never even thought about that. And then we saw that she had twins. And I was like, this is perfect. Okay, so I wanted to give a little insight as to in our session when for people who have never experienced human design, is there anything that you just kind of want to like lay out there before we kind of get into some of this, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So as we've kind of been chatting about, human design is one self-awareness tool. I want you to think about it as one tool you can add to your toolbox of your own personal development and self-discovery. And what human design does is it takes your birth information and it spits out a map, if we will, an energetic map or blueprint of who you are. And it tells us things like what role you came here to play. What are your inherent gifts and strengths? How are you here to express? How is your energy felt? Where are you open to taking in what we call conditioning from the world around you? What are your natural strengths and what do you broadcast out into the world? There are so many pieces here that we can explore with human design. And I like to say that it's all an archetypal system, meaning that every piece tells a story. And all of us who share human design are like translators. So we're obviously filtering it through our own life experience and how we move through and see the world. And so I guess that's what I would love for you to see if you're painting kind of the big picture of human design. These are some of the things that you might learn about yourself when you sit in session or as you start to dive in.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. And if you ever hear the words generator, manifestor, projector, manifesting generator, or what's the other one? Reflector. Yeah. This is what it's pertaining to. So just like
it's like learning a new language.
It is a new language. But I love it. I've absolutely loved it. I was going to ask you too, you did me and Tristan's human design together. Was there anything unique about that session that you thought was interesting? I know my takes and I'll say something, but anyway.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't wait to hear your take. And if I'm looking over here, I have both of your charts pulled. I think number one, and this doesn't even have anything to do with human design in particular, but was the openness that both of you brought to the table. Again, sometimes when we do couple session, there might be one couple or one partner who's a little more closed off or not as interested, and the other one who's really driving the conversation.
Yeah.
But you two came to the table just so open and so willing to have the conversations. The other thing that I really love about the two of you, and as I'm looking at your charts now, there's something that you share in what's called your profile. Profile, think about it. First of all, if you're looking at your chart, it's the thing that looks like a fraction. 2, 4, 4, 6, 6, 2, 3, 5. You are what's called a 4, 6, and Tristan is what's called a 6, 2. And anytime I see the 6 mutually in a partnership in profiles, I think there's just something so special about that. 6 lines go through a really unique journey in their life. And often the second half of their life is really when things get good. There's sometimes late bloomers in that way, but they're so wise. They have so much to offer the world, and they do operate in partnership or there's a kind of a soulmate energy to the 6. And so I just love watching that play out and seeing you two just care so deeply for each other and almost this underlying understanding of it's us or bust. It's team or it's us as a team or bust. And so to see that really manifested in conversation is just so special. I mean, and you two are so powerful together. There's so much ambition and drive and power. I'll come back to that word in your charts. And so being able to support each other in how you move through the world, I think is so powerful. Now, there's some nuances we can get into, but I would love to stop there and see what resonated for you and what came up.
I mean, I loved the two. Well, it really showed up, and I do talk about this on this episode that prior to this week, because we do talk about our session with you in our last episode. But what was funny was that we embark on projects, and we do not have generator children. We have a projector and a manifester, and we embarked on this cleaning project in our garage, and me and him forgot about lunch. Like, we can go, but our kids are coming downstairs and they're like, what's up? What's for lunch? And we're like, this is so like this. If this doesn't say we're both generators, I don't know what does. So anyway, it was just funny. Gosh. It happened after we had our session with you.
Well, generators are so powerful. Sometimes I think when you start to learn about human design, I've had clients come in and they're like, I wish I was a manifestor. I'm a generator. I'm like, do you understand how powerful you are as a generator? You are so powerful. You can literally move mountains. The sustainability of your energy when you are engaged in something that you actually have the energy for, the drive to do, is just awe-inspiring to someone like me who's not a generator. And so I just can't stress enough the power of your energy. And then also, and we can get into this, it's the power of protecting that energy and being very discerning about who gets access to that energy, because it is your superpower.
Yeah. And that was really helpful to know, because both of us also have open heart areas. Yes. And so we overgive, and we sometimes, like, to a fault, and then we can be in places of resentment, and we put ourselves there. And so it was interesting to hear that me and Tristan both had that. And I was like, dadgummit, he can't hold that boundary for me because he's the same way, and so it was just interesting.
Gosh. If you're looking at your chart, if you're listening to this and you have your chart pulled up, the heart center is this tiny little triangle about halfway down your chart, and it's a small but mighty center. And again, the shapes in your chart all tell a story, and the heart center is the seat of willpower, desire. It's concerned with the material world, and when it's open, like Denise is saying, or white, it means that you're here to get really wise about what you value, this overcoming this need to prove yourself in the world, and really defining what it is that is truly valuable to you in your life, beyond even the material and beyond all the accolades. But a tendency of that open heart center is definitely to overgive, to outwork, to outperform in the name of proving that you are worthy or valuable.
It's like getting what I heard you say too is more of like getting it from the outside versus it being like an internal driver.
Yes, you can very, very easily with this undefined, you can pick up on the desires of other people. And so this is the like, there's a famous Prince quote where he said, I've been to the mountaintop and there's nothing there. And this is that kind of empty success feeling where you work your butt off to get the things that you thought you wanted or needed that were going to make you happy and successful. And you get there and you realize that none of it matters to you. And so that's where then you go into the dark night of the soul moment of what is it that I actually want and desire?
Right. Which I can totally relate to. Yeah. And I will say, like, I don't know if this is the part of the open heart center, but I mean, I feel what's a no more now than I've felt before. Like, I'm very attuned to, like, this is not it. This is so you were saying, like, with generators, it's like it's more important. I don't know if that's a blanket statement, but it's more about like what you say no to and versus what you're saying yes to.
Absolutely.
So that really resonated.
It's part of protecting your energy. Again, generator energy. And if you're listening to this and you're a manifesting generator, you have a similar quality in the power of your energy. And it can be so easy to say yes, because maybe you do know that you can get it done, or you do know you could take that thing on, but it's at the risk of your satisfaction and your well-being. And just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily should. And so One thing I talk to clients about a lot, I mean, across the board, but especially generators and manifesting generators, is you have to learn to say no so much more than you say yes. Because where you direct your yes is where you direct your power.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes with time and experience and saying yes to the wrong things and learning. And so it's a journey.
Yeah. I'm becoming more selective about like who has access to me and to what degree.
Yes.
And part of that makes me feel kind of like a bee a little bit, like, and then the other part of me is like, but no, like I do need to be selective about that because it does affect me, and it affects, what I'm able to do and my purpose. So
I love
gosh. That.
Yes. There's a part of your design that really is so important, even beyond the generator and the couple of things we've talked about already. Again, if we come back to profile, you are a 4-6 profile. And a key piece for the 4 is really around quality versus quantity of relationships and the depth of relationships, the reciprocity in relationships, and who is correct for you to connect with. And so if you have a 4 in your profile, you might be a 2-4 or 4-1, a 1-4, or 4-6. There's an element sometimes of hotness and coldness. And I think you and I talked about this in session where when you meet somebody and you feel that energy or that drive to connect, the energy is going to be there. And there's probably some sort of mutual exchange there that's meant to happen, or mutual connection. But if you meet somebody and the energy is completely gone and it feels like pulling teeth even just to make small talk, that's an indicator that it's not that person's a bad person. It just means that there might not be an actual opportunity for the two of you to connect. And people pleasing can live in the 4 as well. So then that makes you feel guilty for not being more engaging or energized. And so then goes the guilt spiral, and then you're exhausted because you've left that event and you feel like a terrible person and you've drained all your energy trying to connect when you really didn't want to.
Yep. That's it. That is so it. And so, I mean, again, like this was a permission slip. And I will also say the other permission slip for even Tristan to know this about my profile was you were like, it's the lightning strike. You get these lightning strikes and like your energy, like you are, you go. And, or like once you get the lightning strike, then you go, but then I will hit a place of melancholy or rest, and then I'll shame spiral. I will be like, what is this all for? Why am I doing this? Why don't I care more right now? Why did I care more earlier? And for him, like as my spouse, he would be like, Denisa, like, what do you mean? Like, you're doing so much. Like, what are you talking about? But I'm like, I'm not doing enough. And and it's almost like it delays the next lightning strike to happen because I'm not allowing myself to rest, be receiving the next one. I don't have the energy to take on the next thing because I'm not resting, like I'm forcing. And I was like, God, that was so good.
Oh, I'm so happy that resonated. And this is an energy I see a lot with entrepreneurs. And it's an energy of this pressure to start something new, to initiate something new, right? Of course, that makes sense for many entrepreneurs because you're going out into the world, you're doing something different, you're creating something out of nothing. But it is this lightning strike of energy, and then it's followed by a lull period. Because think about it, we can't be at a level 10 all the time, or we would never know what level 10 feels like. We can't strike lightning all the time or you'll burn out. And so these lull periods when we are, you are a high achiever, you're very ambitious, you have this channel of ambition in your chart. And so it's so easy to shame when suddenly the energy doesn't really exist anymore. And if we can reframe that as, I'm just refueling the tank. And how do I take really good care of myself while I refuel the tank instead of spiraling? Then I will be so well prepared when the next hit of inspiration strikes.
Yes. Permission slip. That's the permission slip. Like I was like, done. And I mean, I've hit that place. I gave myself space. I was like, we're not going to go there. I know what my body's doing. I know what my system is doing. And then trusting that, going, I haven't lost the path. I'm just allowing my system to, it's just like for females, you're going through a cycle, like if you're going through different phases of your cycle, same thing. It's like your energy is going to be different on certain weeks, like it's kind of similar in that kind of way. But now I'm like, what's my cycle matched up with my human design? That's another question. You know what I mean? Like we should do an overlay on that.
Oh, that would be so interesting. That would
right?
be so interesting.
Yeah, totally. But anyway, I digress. But even like thinking about with leading a team, like as a generator, now I see past times where I've expected my team to be generators.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that that's what I was expecting, like in this kind of languaging, like human design languaging. It was like, why aren't y'all like me? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, you're just also, there's so much power in your design, you know? I mean, we can have generators of a million different flavors, and yours is particularly intuitive, powerful, ambitious, and resourceful. And so, and you also have a consistent or fixed way of thinking and expressing what you think. And so, you know, if we put that all together as a leader, you do carry a lot of power. You have a lot of opinions about how you want to experience things. You are so freaking resourceful. And so, yeah, to look at a team and wonder why they maybe can't keep up, or they're not as resourceful, or they don't carry as much power, physical power to do, it just invites a whole level of compassion. And, you know, I think this is really a really important moment to say that we don't want to use human design for terrible behavior.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
As an excuse?
Let's just say that.
Yeah, as an excuse, because
no.
there's so much power in every single type design. But it's how do we activate that power? And how do we give language to our team? How do we understand? And then as leaders, how do you help guide them into the direction, into the work, into the pace that feels so nourishing and sustainable for them, while still doing great work? I think that's where it can really open up the doors for a deeper conversation around that specifically.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, there was a question that I was like, ooh, that's good. I need to ask her that. If a leader is in a season of responsibility overload, team, family, finances, what's the first design element you look at to help them stabilize instead of spiral?
Oh, that is such a great question. I think it would really depend. It would really depend on their design. If they're a sacral type, meaning a generator or a manifesting generator, I would likely look to, where are you putting all your energy? Let's actually do an energy audit. It might be painful to do, but what can you delegate? What can you get off your plate right now? And we look at that as, what do you just do? What do you have no energy for? Is it like the bookkeeping? Okay, great. Spend $200 and bring somebody in to do audit your QuickBooks. You know, like whatever that is. Or are you taking on too much responsibility? I think that kind of goes in with the delegating. Are you, as a generator, manifesting generator, are you leaving any room for joy and play and engaging in the activities that you know bring you closer to yourself? So, you know, like my husband, he loves to run. He loves to golf. But if he's not consciously carving out the time to go for his runs, the energy we start to feel it in the home, right? And so it's seeing those acts as really selfless acts. And so those are some things I would look at right away for a generator, a manifesting generator. For a projector, a couple of things. Projectors are about 20% of the population, and they're really here to offer what they see and their awareness. It's not as much about what they do. But man, can they be control freaks? I can say that because I am one. But they can want to control things. They think that they can just do it themselves, and they think they have to keep pace with the world, and that is a recipe for burnout. And so I would look at, you know, how are you spending your day? Where to can you delegate? Are you baking in periods of rest, of study, of mastering your craft? Because projectors are really here to be the experts. And or are you seeking recognition from people who don't recognize you? And so that can be, you know, pushing really hard to prove that you are good at what you do, or that you're worthy, or XYZ. Are you with individuals who actually recognize the genius within you? Those are some things I would ask for projectors.
Those are so
good. Matt,
what would you say for other ones?
Yeah. So manifestors are about 10% of the population. They're so powerful. If you are a manifestor and you're listening to this, I just need you to know that you are here for impact and you are here for power. And so a couple of places I would look for manifestors is, are you trying to do it all? Are you letting people in? Because manifestors can be a hard read. And so are you actually letting people into your process, into what you're holding, what you desire, where you would like to go with your energy or your time? And manifestors, when they are caught in the weeds of things, that is where anger And anger can be reactive or repressed, right? That's where that can start to manifest. And so are you too in the weeds? Are you too caught in the doing? Because the manifestor really sits in the role of the visionary. And then the other question I would ask the manifestor is, do you feel like your work is creating impact? Because manifestors are here for impact. I was just chatting with a girlfriend recently who's a manifestor who has felt like her impact has really been stifled over the last year. And she's considering a new role. And this role would offer her the ability to impact many people at a really high level. And that is what energizes her. And so I think looking at your impact and where you're putting your energy is important. And then reflectors, reflectors are so unique. But I would say if you're overwhelmed, are you trying to keep pace with the world? Because reflectors are really here to teach us how to slow down, to be present, to enjoy the process. And when they are trying to sprint at the pace that the world has set for us, that can be a recipe for burnout. Also, their environments and the people that they're around can really make a difference too. And so are you in spaces and places that really bring out the best in you, that make you feel really energized or a sense of kind of like wholeness, surprise, delight? These are all qualities of a really aligned reflector. And so if they're feeling really drained, I would look at environment, I would look at workload, I would look at pace first.
So it's so interesting. For you guys that are listening, we're all different. And in hearing some of that, as a leader, I can see different pieces of my team. I can see my kids. I can see, and I'm like, how do I honor places where we can squeeze as much juice out of each other? It's like, that's the generator part of me.
Yes.
But I'm just like, but also not like, you're not going to get as much even from an employee who's burning, and if you know how to work with them, that's honoring to their system, you're going to get so much more from this person, what I mean? And it's honoring for their system.
Absolutely.
And I think about that with my kids, so when you said manifestor, I'm like, that's Pearson. And then projector, that's Leighton. Like she sees it in her friends. She tells us what she sees, and it makes so much more sense. And her energy literally starts high in the day, and then it's just kind of like, and she's done.
Yes.
And we wondered why, we'd look at each other, we're like, who are these children, that we have made? And the Lord has blessed us with some children that are not like us, which is awesome. And we're here to learn from them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's like, how do we can't necessarily captain their ship, but how do we make sure that they have everything they need and all the resources that they need so that they can really captain that ship? And how do we be good stewards of their spirit and the work that they came here to do? And I think this answers, this has been so transformative in my own parenting, but it answers that age-old question of like, how did they were raised in the same household by the same parents. How are you so different? That is, they are so different. And the founder of human design said, human design is for the kids. Because those of us who have lived life, we have so much baggage to unpack and release. But if we can, if the system speaks to you and you can start to understand your children at this level, you can really encourage and activate them and inspire them to really live so authentically, which might mean you're going to make different schooling choices or extracurricular choices, or you're going to slow down the rat race because that's what feels most nourishing. And that's holy work right there. That is like brave and holy work.
It is.
Yeah.
It is holy work. We did that with our daughter. We could see her spirit just diminishing. And then we were like, I think we were putting her into private school, and she resisted us at first, but then she told us, we went to tour, and she's like, I feel the Holy Spirit here. And I was like, whoa,
wow.
I can't negate that. Yeah. And, and her spirit just started to flourish and blossom, being in a smaller environment, being in a more intentional pace. It wasn't just so, and whereas our son is different, people ask us all the time, well, are you going to put your son there? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know, because I don't know what's going to be what's best for him. It's so unique, but it totally resonates. And honestly, guys, I'm giving Leighton this. She doesn't know yet, but she's getting a gift of having a little session with Maggie, just because, I would have loved to have this as a teenager going into upper school, and then going into college, understanding kind of the fabric of why does this feel off to me? And it's not just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean that my energy should be doing it, or just kind of having a little more of a lay of the land of her own spirit.
Wow.
But,
And what a gift, especially for projectors. I think projectors they are some of the most unique out of everybody in human design, because our energy works almost exactly counter to what at least the Western, this rat race society that we've created. And so we also call projectors late bloomers because they push harder than anybody else. They usually burn out. We usually go through some sort of like crisis of spirit or health or whatever it might be. And then we start to piece things together and realize that we were never meant to operate at this pace. And actually projectors, when they can be fully rested, fully rooted in their area of expertise. They're here to study. They're here to be great students and really master their crafts. When they can be so confident and rooted in whatever that arena is and sit back and share what they've learned, they become some of the most powerful guides. To be seen by a projector is some of the most empowering moments, I think, of anybody's lives. And they're such great activators for people. But it's so different. Yeah. It's just so different.
So, yeah. I had another question for you, if you don't mind. So, how do you coach leaders who, let's say they intellectually know their design, but they emotionally struggle to honor it in real time?
This is the $1 million question, right? Because knowing a system, knowing anything about ourselves, the self-awareness is one thing, the embodiment is another. And I think that embodying your design, if this system speaks to you, is a lifelong practice. So in human design, we actually say it takes roughly 7 years to even start to decondition or start to kind of release some of these stories. And then the real work begins. So it's like 7 years of just unpacking so much. And then you really start to kind of live and embody this work. And that has been so true for me. I'm not even at my full 7 years yet. But it's just a constant rewiring and catching yourself in the act of these habits that have kept you stuck and burnt out. And again, that is holy work. That's spiritual work right there. To say, I usually say yes to that. I'm going to politely decline that invitation. You know what? I usually push in this scenario for my employee. I'm going to pause and I'm actually going to ask them what's going on. How are they doing? What's on their plate right now? Projectors love to give unsolicited advice. And so I still catch myself in the act of doing this, or my husband's talking and I'm ready to spew some advice, or my son is like about to touch the hot stove, right? Which, of course I would intervene, but or he's trying to put together, we have this marble set right now and he's trying to put together the marble set. And for me, it's like that itch. I just want to intervene and tell him how it's done. But then I'm taking away his free will and I'm actually repelling the energy. So these are just some examples of, it's very, very intentional work to start to actually live it and embody it. And you have to have so much grace with yourself in the process because we're rewiring all these unconscious patterns, right? Yep. And if you talked about the subconscious, it runs like 99% of the show.
Yeah. It's like the awareness. The awareness is there. Like once you hear it, you're starting to know it. You're like, oh, I did that again.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. Yes. See that. And then you recognize it the next time,
Yes. It's a work in progress.
I would say it's definitely a work in progress. But I'm starting to notice even like energetically, like my nervous system feeling, that doesn't feel right. That feels like a no.
Yes.
That doesn't feel like a yes, and that's a start.
Oh my gosh.
That's a start for me.
I think this is such an important point, Denise, because two things. One, there's 800 tributaries you could go down with this system. I would pick one. Pick one thing to really focus and notice in your life. Really, if you're really embodying your design, at some point it will become more natural, but we have to do that rewiring. But I think this is also a really important point because so much of this experience is a lived and embodied experience. And we can't fully experience that if we are in dissociation, we're in adrenal fatigue, we're in burnout. And so I think the best thing anybody could do, right, is to really start to take such good care of their bodies. And that means something different for everybody. But especially for the sacral types, you can't hear your gut feeling or really know your gut feeling if you've completely disassociated from your body. So that's work too. I think just even beginning that and prioritizing that and seeing that as a true gift, not only for you, but for everybody else, and to find the healers and the support systems you need And that's so important. And human design can give some language to help even direct into those places.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for anyone who wants to give this, find out about their human design. I know that you have a couple different offerings where you have your own personalized chart that they can receive from you, but then also they can also have a session with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll put that link in the show notes. Maggie, would you like to leave us with anything when it comes to human design?
I think, if the system speaks to you, go ahead and start exploring it, playing with it. Again, it's like learning a new language. So be kind with yourself as you start to dive in. But I think more importantly, I really, in my heart of hearts, believe we're entering an era where it is more important now than ever to develop a relationship with your inner authority. And to me, inner authority is a direct connection with God, right? And remembering that you were divinely designed and that you always have access to that deeper well of wisdom within you. And I just think that is going to be so important as we move into this next era and this next season of life. And if human design speaks to you, it's going to give you some language to deepen that inner authority. And that's why I think it's so powerful and why I'm so passionate about sharing it.
I love that. Divinely designed. I love that. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise here. Guys, you'll definitely want to connect with Maggie. Follow her on Instagram. I'll put all the handles in there in the show notes. But yeah, I hope this is fruitful for all of you and that you can understand yourselves a little bit better when it comes to leading, whether in your home, yourself, or your team. So thanks again, Maggie. I appreciate it.
Much.
I love your voice. It's so grounding. Like when you said you had a yoga background, I'm like, of course she did. She could lead me through I'm just going to lay here and lead me through a meditation or something.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here with you. I'm so grateful for the invitation. Thank you so much.
I love it. I love it. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to Burn It Better. Follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, tap 5 stars or write us a quick review. That's how this work is going to grow. I'd love to hear what stood out for you in this conversation. Share this episode, tag me at Southern_Cairo on Instagram, and pass it on to someone who needs it today.